Hi, I'm Dan Hillis, lecturer from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater College of Business and Economics, and this is Principles of Selling, Marketing 312, and we're going to talk about the sales process. We've already talked about the buying process, or we have the buying process, and I want you to know a little bit about the sales process. And it's, in the buying process, you learn how a consumer or a company develops awareness of a need and a desire to take care of it. And in sales, we have to do the same thing. So let's talk about it, shall we? How do we bring the customer along in their thought process to realize that they have a need or an interest in something like this and create that desire to do it? And this is just going to be a brief overview of the sales process. I think you need to understand it's really what this course is built on. So let's talk a little bit about it, shall we? So the actual sales process itself, and I'm trying to here we go. It consists of 8 steps. We're going to talk about each one of those steps. So the first one is prospecting. How do you get, how do you identify a prospect? So of course we have a chapter on that. You've learned that. With prospect is a good prospect is a mad buyer. They have the money, the authority, and the desire to buy it. Okay. You also learn about the sales funnel, how we have leads. So leads are generated in a lot of different ways. And it can be at trade shows, it can be on the internet, social media. There's a lot of different ways that you can generate leads. You can search all kinds of databases to generate leads and create suspects. Okay, suspects are people that you say, okay, well, what makes a good prospect? Well, they have a need. Maybe they have a need for this. Okay, so they're the type of customer that can use this product. But are they a prospect? So that's where you have to start doing more digging, and you get into the pre-approach process. And the pre-approach is where you find out a lot of information about that prospect or that suspect before you actually turn them into a prospect. I'm going to back up a second. A real prospect, when it's all said and done, part of this process is determine if they are in fact a mad buyer. And that's somebody who has the money, the authority, and the desire to buy it. So give you an example. I've always wanted a Porsche 911 Carrera, and I put that all on hold with family and career and all that kind of stuff. And now, you know what? I have the money. I could go buy one. And I'd really like to do that. And I have the desire. It's something I've always wanted to do, and I just think it'd be really cool, and it's something I'd like to do. But I don't have the authority. There's a little lady sitting up in the office above me, and I'll call my wife. And she would rather spend that money on our grandkids, and yeah, we'll see. But right now, I'm not a mad buyer. I'm probably what you would call a suspect, but not really a prospect yet. Now, if I got the authority, then I might become a prospect, and then you might have to take on the fact, if you're selling 911 Carreras, then you may also have to take into account that I am also interested in possibly a Viper, a Dodge Viper. I know they're older, but man, they're so cool. Or maybe a Corvette. I really like the new Vets. So anyway, keeping all that in mind, I slowly move down that funnel. So let's go to the next step, pre-approach. Pre-approach is when you find out as much as you can about that customer before you approach them. Now, some sales, hey, you're grabbing people in a mall. That's fine. But for a lot of B2B sales, you have to find out as much as you can about the company, and that can take a lot of time and effort, but it's well worth it because it'll help you when you actually make your approach to go ahead and make that appointment to visit with them. It's the first decision a buyer makes is to see or talk with you, and you have to, whether it be on the phone, through an email, a voicemail, or in person, is to get to meet with them and make that first impression. You only have one chance to make a good first impression. One, that's it. Okay, so you want to be as well prepared as possible. The next step along the way is to get them to go ahead and give you permission to ask more questions to find out needs identification. You want to confirm that the prospect is in fact a mad buyer, okay, that they have the money, the authority, the desire to buy it, and they have a need for it. So needs identification is critical, and what we use and what we're going to teach is SPIN method, S-P-I-N. S is for finding out what the situation is, P is finding out what the problems are, I is implications, what are those problems caused, and N is a needs solution. How can I help you solve those problems? It's all asking questions, it's not telling. So what is your situation? Okay, so tell me, who do you currently use? Now, you may know that they tend to be late on their deliveries, but you're not going to state that. You say problems. You'll ask several questions about situation and problems. So, how has delivery been? Oh, I've been having real problems with it. Oh, really? Okay. Implication is, so when you have late delivery, what does that mean to your company? Well, it means I've been losing customers, or I've had to cut discounts to keep them happy. I'm losing money. It's a tough situation. Okay. Need solution is, so if I can show you how we can, or if I can show you a way to eliminate those late deliveries, is that something you'd be interested in taking a look at? Now, with that, I got a commitment to go ahead and look. So I'm asking questions, I'm identifying the needs, and I got a pre-commitment. Is that something you'd be interested in looking at? And then we move on to what's called the presentation. Now, again, this may be all in one sitting. It might be in minutes, depending upon what you're buying. If you're buying a cup of coffee, it's really quick. It's a rebuy, it's fast. But if I'm selling a system to a company, this can take months, years even, okay? But somewhere along the line, I'm going to have to do a presentation that describes the product and shows the buyer's needs. It might be a demonstration, it might be it might be videos, it might be PowerPoint. There's a lot of different ways that I can present things, okay? But I'm going to talk about the features of the product and the advantages that they give and how that benefits the customer, and it provides solutions to the problems that were brought up under the needs identification. Okay? If all of a sudden I start talking about stuff that doesn't apply to them, I'm going to lose them. So I have to stay focused on that presentation. In that presentation, I'm going to show some evidence that this really works. Maybe it's a live demonstration so they can see it. Maybe it's a trial so they can try it for a while. Maybe it's calling someone else and having testimonials from people that they know or companies that they feel confident with. But somewhere along the line, I have to provide evidence or hard numbers to show that this in fact does what it says. And then ultimately we close on the next step. Notice I'm always closing and getting a commitment on the next step, and it's agreement to move the process forward. Quite often it's agreement to close it, but quite often it's to move the process forward. Because in a lot of situations, there are a lot of different peoples, a lot of different levels of peoples in a company that need to be involved, okay? Along the way, you're gonna hit objections, and objections are a reason for a customer to decline to buy, but it's also showing I'm concerned, or I haven't bought into this, or I'm not totally sold on that. And objections can come in different ways, including body language. So you really have to be watching and aware of your customer, listening to tone of voice. And the worst customer in the world to be presenting to or doing anything with is the customer or the prospect that doesn't respond, that is stoic and doesn't show anything. So along the way, when you're doing this presentation, you're going to ask trial closes. So what do you think? How's that sound? Can you see yourself using this? Does this make sense for you? Will this fit into your process? Those kind of things, those are called trial closes. They're not made to sell, they're to gauge the temperature of the customer, get them engaged and involved in the presentation, understand. So when you get to handling objections, you're dealing with, you have some idea what's important to them, what their concerns are. Objections can happen at any time. It might be that initial call when you first contact them, and it might be even after you make the sale, okay? You should find out what those objections are and root them out and seek to resolve them, because if you don't, they'll come back to haunt you. And you know what? Sometimes there's objections you want to find early on that can't be overcome. You want to find that out up front. Otherwise, you waste a lot of time. So handling objections is not something that you should be afraid of. It's something you learn to do. You learn how to do it based on your product, based on your customer, but there's really only some basic objections that are out there. The next step is closing the sale. And that's actually asking the buyer for the sale, for the transaction. And I've seen people who never asked for the sale and never got it because the only reason was because they didn't ask. The customer was waiting for them to ask, but wasn't going to give it to them unless they asked, okay? A good close reinforces the decision to buy. So we've seen that it can do this, this, and this for you, and you've mentioned that you like the way this happens, and that when you put it all together, it's going to give you bigger profits. Can we go ahead? That's reinforcing the decision to buy. Confirm the implementation schedule. We'll talk about that in just a second. And thanking the buyer and asking for referrals. I can honestly tell you I was not good at that in my career. I did not ask for enough referrals. So it's something that you need to do. Implementation follow-up is, when can we deliver it? How can we deliver it? How long is this going to take? Auto dealers are really good at that. You know, you buy a car and they say, why don't you come back tomorrow and we'll have the car all ready for you. It's probably ready right now, but they make a big deal out of it. So you set an appointment, you come back, you finish up the paperwork, they take you in back, they give your little grandson a cookie, and then they sit there and they show you all the different bells and whistles in the car, and they got it parked right there in a prep area, so it looks kind of cool, and then they take you over and introduce you to the service writers, so that you know who to call when you have a service issue or warranty work is needed, and remind you that you get your free, you know, first oil change and all those kind of things. Okay, and they do that to eliminate cognitive dissonance or buyer's remorse, but it also is to give you a good experience. Good follow-up, good service. You might have a lifelong, quite often after the implementation is what determines whether or not you'll have a lifelong relationship with that customer, if you'll have repeat business or not. So it's very, very important. And that's where you do training and service and all those other things. And some installations, I've had some, there's sophisticated systems that took 6 months before everything was up and running the way it should be. Okay? That's the way it works. So thanks a lot. Thanks for taking a few minutes to understand the basic buyer cycle, and that's what we're going to be or sales cycle, and that's what we're going to be working on throughout this course. All right, thanks.